Okay, so this is chaplain training. This is January the 21st, 2025, and we have two final classes to touch today. Cop Psychology 101, which is a course I distilled from some courses that I took, and also ride-along procedures and crime scene integrity. So all very important stuff. And I'm going to share a screen with this. And where'd they go? No. Sorry about this. Come on. There we go. I had to have them popped open before it would allow me to do this. Okay. We're good. We're going to start. Here we are. Class number 13 is Cop Psychology 101. I have attended a number of what they call ATS, the annual training sessions for the International Conference of Police Chaplains. And one I attended in Michigan at Grand Rapids. They had the psychologists from the Michigan Patrol. They got a highway patrol, basically. It's the state police force. They have a statewide police force that is centered in Lansing, Michigan. And Lansing is an interesting place for that because it's not in the center of the state. Michigan is a pretty big state, especially if you take that northern little arm that's up above the lake. It goes on for hundreds and hundreds of miles. And if you leave from the center of the state's law enforcement, which is in Lansing, the southwest corner of the state, you're not near Detroit, and you're not near anything else, and you got to travel big distances, especially if you're in a hurry. So they have police cars, or had at the time police cars that were the big Crown Vic police cars, typical markings. But instead of a light bar on the top that we typically see, they had this sort of like a big, tall, looked like a gum dispenser from an old candy store, with a big flashing red light that had a reflector that went around and around real fast. They liked that a lot because distance-wise, you could see one of those 10 miles off. You could see a cop car 10 miles from where you were. And they'd get on those highways and hit the gas and be doing 130. And we're seriously coming. And everybody got out of their way. The Michigan State Police, because in Michigan, everything in the world is about cars. Their car training session, their car safety and road warrior stuff was par none. They were exceptionally really good. So beyond that, they had studied the psychology of their rather large police department and were very good experts on the things that happen to cops because of policing. So this kind of comes from the refinement of what they laid out for us, and we'll talk about several aspects of the way cops think and act and are. It is in no way a judgment against the police. We just have to know how they tick so that we know what we're dealing with, because we're going to be in a small container, a car with them. No longer the Crown Victorias. We're now got the big RVs that are really well equipped and very roomy. I'm thankful for that. It used to be when we went out on patrol in the Crown Victorias, we also didn't have laptop computers that were mounted into the console. They had a radio and they had a little scratch pad with pencil, and they would take addresses while they were driving and steering with their knees and taking notes from the radio on the little scratch pad. And that was pretty interesting. Anyway, no more scratch pads. They're all typing on these very high-end, strong, herky kind of laptops that sit between the two car chairs, and sophisticated radio equipment. They do a lot less on radio now and more on typed in information, which is very interesting. So talking about what makes them tick, what does it do to have a cop involved with you? Some personality traits are common to most officers. We'll talk about the average, the typical. They're not all typical people, but they tend to have some things in common, and we need to look at that. They are committed when they get into this. Okay, I got Carla coming aboard. All right, Carla, welcome. Good to have you aboard. I hope you can hear this. We're just getting started on cop psychology and what makes them tick. So this is just where we're at. We're talking about the cops who go in for this profession. They are very committed. They aren't just doing this job as a side thing. It's an absolute, all-encompassing lifestyle for them. They tend to bear up integrity. They have to do the thing right, and they have to do the thing by the book. Or if they're going to be rebellious, they will be rebellious in an integral way. They're highly disciplined. They're taught. This is a semi-military organization, and so they come under the discipline of that. They're quite brave. They move toward the sound of the guns instead of away. They like to enter into action situations, and they're for that because they have to be. They have to face the danger for us and put their bodies as a shield for us. We're very grateful to them for that. They are quite careful. They don't just stupidly barge into situations, hopefully, but they come into situations with care and discipline, and they know what they're doing, and they know the best way to come in on a situation and diffuse it. They are honest, sometimes embarrassingly so. Sometimes they'll say things you wish they wouldn't say, but they'll tell you what they mean, and you'll hear about it. Quite selfless. I wouldn't say that is perfectly so, but they can give them their bodies and their health and their well-being to the cause, and be injured if need be, because they come packed with more weapons than we all have, and they're there for us. They come with a great deal of confidence. They project confidence. Now, they may be feeling like they're shaking inside, but they project confidence, and they have to, into a situation so that we will all feel that somebody grown up has taken over. They are very observant. Riding along with an officer, I'm just going down a street. I'm fairly confident I know what street we're on and what part of town we're in and which direction we're headed maybe. But the officer will be talking and driving and looking down the street. All of a sudden, he'll turn right instantly. He's seen something 2 blocks away to the right, a guy on a bicycle that he recognizes and needs to go see about and make a stop and check the guy out. I didn't even see the guy. I didn't even look that direction. They are scanning 180 degrees at all times. They're very observant. They come as a servant. They will speak with reverence to individuals they stop on the street. They'll use good, high, proper language because they are servants. They are physically fit and quite decisive, and they're multitask oriented. They can do a lot of things at once. The cops are that. The dispatchers are 5 times as multitask oriented. You'll find out they're amazing. They deal in a world of ethics where they have to do things according to the book. There's a whole thick book called it's the protocol for police officers in the Chico Police Department, and it has to do with every single aspect of their their life as a cop, and they got to live by the book and know what it says in there. They think on their feet. The chief will always say, I can't be wherever everybody is, so I have to believe that my officers are making the same decisions I would make in their place. And I rely on them to do the right thing and to make those calls that would reflect well upon the department and upon the city of Chico and upon themselves. And he's generally right in doing so. And they are very compassionate. You would think when they come upon somebody in a situation that they're going to come down hard on them, call them names or put them in irons, or instead they have a conversation with them that's a first name basis. They know what their story is, and they have sympathy for that person, empathy for their lives, and they show compassion. It's quite remarkable. Now, traits of clergy, that is the ideal clergy person. We have many of those that we just cited above. In addition, faith-filled, of course. We have a faith in God. We have a spiritual side and a spiritual life, as do many of the officers, though they don't all universally have that. We have certain management skills where we are dealing with people in a different way than cops do. We hopefully can be and act mature. We understand a level of confidentiality when we're talking with somebody. We've spoken about that. I gave you a class in how we deal with confidentiality. We may be a time manager. The cops go out and they do what they've got to do, and they stay as long as they have to stay, and they can't really manage their time so much as to get the job done, and when it's done, they go on to something else. We have to manage and balance our time between appointments. We have monetary management concerns because our churches don't just print money. They have to be able to be managed properly and well, and managing of our families. So, some aspects about cops and what they're like. Cops need to be in control. When they aren't, they must seize control. This is for the officer's own safety and the safety of the public, and a reduction of the general threat. When they come into a violent or unstable situation, they have to impose their authority and make sure that everybody is recognizing that and obeying that. That's not a power trip. It's their job to get the authority in the situation so that nobody gets hurt and everybody responds to the proper authority. Cops have great difficulty when they're not in control of events, when things go sideways. We've had cops respond to parties in Chico, and we're in a university town, and beer parties are a typical thing here, big kegers and caseload upon caseload of Sierra Nevada beer coming in brown bottles. Well, when the cops show up and they say this is an unauthorized meeting because you got 500 kids here, they're underage, you're not supposed to be handing out drinks or selling drinks at this situation. It's too loud, the neighbors are complaining about it, whatever it is that they've got to come bring. And they're standing out on the edge of like 500 young people who are 3 sheets to the wind. They're all pretty drunk. And then the hail of bottles in the air start coming down on the cops. Mm-hmm. Kids start throwing beer bottles, full ones, at the cops from a great height. If it comes down on their skull, it could crack their skull. It could cause them great bodily harm. Not a good thing. So we have to have control of this situation. And that gets them freaked out because they're not in control of this event. Things do get out of control, however, beyond their control, like their own families can be, and that can be troublesome. Their position might be in question. They may have a rank that may be taken from them if they don't obey according to the rules. They may even be themselves out of control, and that can be a real problem for them. Okay, police officers are in a position of trust. Cops suffer from distrust and skepticism due to what they see on their job day in, day out. Everyone must first prove their trustworthiness to a cop. So that's when we go out with them, we must show them that we are going to be where they expect us to be, and living it right. I'm going to have to close my office door. We're getting a little noise. The public being honest and having integrity are rare traits when they go out. People lie to them all the time, and that will affect the way they hear people who tell them stories. Maybe they're true stories, maybe they're not, but they don't trust it. They suffer a lot of disillusionment, and they can't trust necessarily the level above them in the hierarchy. They're not sure they're getting the truth or a fair deal, and so trust is challenged. In order to avoid feeling foolish, cops will distrust first, and then you may be able to earn their trust. This distrust is reinforced by their job. Ask a cop about clergy. If you ask the cops, just an average cop in the world, what do you think of ministers? What do you suppose they think of first and express? Well, they remember the last time they saw a headline where some priest somewhere was sexually abusing young children in the back of the church somewhere. And that becomes the way they look at all of us. We have to unbuild that reputation by our actions with them. And Carla, as I was telling Marianne before you got here, we've fortunately, with 25 years of working with the police department, we've built a good reputation for the police chaplains, because when they see us in uniform coming into the halls, they don't immediately go, who the heck is that and why are they in here, and get them out of here, which they would to strangers. But we've built a reputation that the police chaplains are good to have along, and they generally welcome us, and we've built a certain degree of trust. Individually, we all have to enhance that by what we do and how we act with them. Cops usually have a very small circle of trusted people and friends. We have large circles that may be our churches, but probably as pastors and ministers, we have a small circle of the people who we can totally tell the truth to and be accountable to, because we can't necessarily be that open with everybody. And this reinforces the perceived untrustworthiness of others. When they have a small circle of trusted people, that means the people outside there are not trusted. Cops give great loyalty to their trusted circle, and they will cover for each other. They need to have that much fellowship. If a cop gets all alone in this world, that's when they can be dangerous. Cops live in an authority structure, and they respect authority. Cops give a great respect for authority and expect authority to be respected at work, on the street, at home. They hold the power to remove another person's freedom, so that authority has some great power with it. You and I go out and try to take authority over somebody on the street, we could get beat up, and maybe rightfully so. We're infringing on somebody else's rights, perhaps. But they can do that because they have that authority. The badge and the symbols of the city are with them. And we'll have the same looking badges and symbols of the city and patches on our shoulders. And we extend some authority as well, although we don't have the guns to back it up. We just have their guns to back it up. When somebody's freedom can be removed from them for a period of time or restrained, that's when authority has to be righteous. They are keenly aware of the signs and symbols of authority, the strong identity of as Chico Police Department, the guns and the badges and all of that make them very aware of one another. They're aware of other agencies with other symbols, and they generally mutually respect each other. When an officer is forced to give up his gun, he needs to be given another gun so his authority isn't diminished, and distrust is implied by the removal of the gun. As we talked about in a police-involved shooting, the gun is removed because it is evidence of a situation that has to be investigated, not because it's an indictment against their behavior, unless that is suspected. A badge is a remnant of the shield from the warrior culture. The shield was held out in front of the soldier as a protection. This little badge that we wear on our chest doesn't do much of that, but it's symbolic of the shield. The roots of authority concept come from family origins, parents. Our parents are our first authority. They're a model for God in our minds, and we need to recognize that good or bad initial authorities can shape the way we deal with authority. A lot of cops become authoritarians. They expect obedience can be very rigid. Dominance is expressed, submission is expected. But at the back of all that, a lot of cops are rebellious. They will get away with what they can get away with, not crime. I don't mean that. But they'll goof around, they'll do things that you think, wow, you're kind of off base here. But they know what they can get by with, and they'll sometimes challenge us in how they act with the authority that they bear. There is a lot of loyalty that pertains to this job. After trust is established, a cop's loyalty is forever.
Unknown caller.
Excuse me. Get that later. Loyalty to their partner can be a code of silence and go beyond all other loyalties. Most cops have a designated partner that they work in kind of teams, and that partner can be trusted to the point where they can hide each other's secrets, which can be unhealthy or unethical, but it happens, and it may go beyond all other loyalties. Their loyalties can go to unethical behavior, as I say, a cover-up. There's a movie, I haven't seen it, I've been told 16 Blocks is a portrayal of this. And the loyalty can be a blind kind of trust, may or may not be placed in the right way. But when placed in the right way, and their loyalty to the department, to God, to America, to the city of Chico, to policing, it can be a strong indication that everything is good. It won't surprise you that most of the cops just voted red, okay, because they're all pretty conservative, and they don't like what they consider crazy, wacky ideas. Cops tend to hold traditional beliefs and values, and they're very patriotic. They have a strong work ethic, and they believe in the traditional family and traditional sexual values. So they think that ought to be there now. The breakdown of the marriage that happens too frequently in police life is an unfortunate byproduct of the hardness of their lives, but their values still say that what's right and what's wrong is pretty black and white. The rule of law is to be obeyed. They believe that. They can be politically very conservative, very pro-government, pro-military. Most of our cops have served in the military, or at least at one point they had, and can be very conservative on social issues. So if you are conservative, you're going to be fairly comfortable talking to these guys. In the realm of politics, if you want to go there, although that doesn't usually happen much, I don't get into political conversations with this. They are also tend to be religious conservatives, drawn to traditional churches, hold such worldviews. They don't all go to church. In fact, not many of them do, because of their screwy schedules and the time they feel they got to have with their families. but they do hold a strong religious sense. Very many of them are Christians. They have such an understanding of humanity, that mankind's fallen, that we need a savior, and they'll hold that position as well. Their religious positions and values are informed by their religious conservative base. Chaplains tend to be likewise conservative. Not all chaplains are Republicans, I won't say that, but they hold common values with the cops and don't have strife with law enforcement style. A chaplain who gets into place and then wants to defund the police and turn them all into social workers ain't going to get very far. It's not the philosophy that we seek or find as successful. So law enforcement style, goals, and issues don't rankle us. We believe in the mission, which is to make the city safe and use force if necessary, but wear the authority in order that good goals and manners are held commonly in our society. Religious liberals may tend to shy at weaponry, being upset about the wearing of guns and so forth, and obtaining peace through power and strength. What they may experience is intolerant attitudes. But our cops are not racist. They apply the law fairly. They don't overexert their authority and use of force unless the use of force is really needed in a situation. Cops tend to, let's see, I just went past. All right. Dichotomous thinking, that is, dichotomy is, of course, that there's two opposites, a balance between like success and failure. Things to a cop are quite simplistic. Shades of gray don't work for cops. Little gradations between things don't seem to be real. It's either black or it's white. It's right or it's wrong. It's legal or it is illegal. It's moral or immoral, good or bad, winner, loser, good guys, bad guys. They think in terms of, is there a violation here? Is it a violation sufficient to arrest or cite? If so, we take care of it. If not, I move along. Have a good day. So there are very few nuances, although they may warn somebody or inform somebody that they've got to straighten up. They like things in efficient, clear-cut, easy categories, and I can't blame them because they can't go out and fix everything or make people into nice people. They just have to go out and work on the things that they are allowed to work on. They can be judgmental. Cops are good judges of people,
Out the window.
good judges of character. They make quick judgments, very quick judgments. They're quick to size up a person and to figure out whether they're getting the truth from the sky or he's running them around. This is essential to their safety. They have to find out who is playing a good game and who is playing a bad game, or maybe everybody's bad. They've got lots of experience leading to their judgmental attitudes. So they look for symbols or signs that a person is on the side of law or is going to give them trouble. They can have judgments of all others and even of their own fellow officers. When they judge, their judgment is final. Now, I was riding one day with a police officer who was a great deal of fun. We had a lot of laughs. He was a very funny guy. And we got a call to an apartment burglary here in Chico. There is a period of time that we're just getting over right now, the winter break, which runs about 5 weeks from Christmas through New Year's and on into the end of January, where the kids who have apartments here leave all of their stuff in their apartments, lock them up, and then go home to wherever their folks are. And they expect it to be safe and untouched when they get back. Well, a lot of apartments get burglarized during that period of time, and all their high-cost electronic equipment, all their expensive video games, tapes, discs, things that they've collected over their life are gone when they get back, and they complain about it. Well, just after that season of burglaries, we had a call to a burglary that had happened live the previous night, and the two roommates were there. We interviewed them. We heard a description of the bad guys who they actually caught in the act of stealing a huge widescreen TV, a big Xbox, and a bunch of other stuff. And we got a description of the getaway vehicle, a pickup truck with a particular kind of decal on the back. So we had a lot of information, and there was some indication, I'm not sure how right now, where that might be, because it might be that they live over at what used to be called the zoo. It's now called something else, but it's over there off of Fifth Avenue, west of Highway 32. Well, we drove over that way, just happened to come upon a truck with that description and that decal on the back, and we stopped and called it in. And we had an identification of, here's somebody who lives here in such and such an apartment. So we went and rang the bell. This guy came out wearing a towel, just having gotten out of the shower. We said, get your pants on. So he did. And then he talked to us. And for a while, he was very communicative and very bright and very innocent seeming. And my cop thought this guy was clean. It may not have been him. Maybe it was somebody who borrowed the truck. Maybe his story is right. But then he detected something. Something in what the kid said rang untrue. And he said, now there you just told me a lie. That judgment call coming from experience. He said, I looked at the way you looked away from me right then. I looked at your dilation of your pupils, and you changed your story there. So you're telling me a lie now. And the kid was nonplussed. He was amazed. The perception was amazing. And as he began to talk, the kid kind of unbuilt himself and eventually started to cry. And he says, it'll kill me. This other guy was influencing me, and we ended up so we went into the kid's bedroom by his leave, so we didn't have to get a court order. And there was the big screen TV, there was the Xbox, there was all the equipment that was just been stolen the night before. And we packed the kid up and moved it on. So his ability to perceive the little psychological cues, I was very amazed by. The cops are also quite competitive. You won't be surprised to hear that. They're highly competitive. Who's the best? Who is the fastest? Who is the strongest? They do a lot of bodybuilding. And one of our cops for some time went on the Ironman, which was crazy physical feats and fast, and he won it. He won an Ironman competition.
Wow.
They deal with athletics. They do foot chases. One of our officers, who's now dead, used to always be in foot pursuits because he was so fast, and he'd get and tackle the guys. Or high-speed pursuits in vehicles. They may compete in the number of tickets issued, especially DUI arrests. There's an annual award by Mothers Against Driving Drunk that gives police officers who have above 50 or something DUI tickets during the year, they get a special award and recognition. We've had some officers who did, I think one officer did 100 tickets driving under the influence during a year. Now that's a lot of paperwork and a lot of drunk driving and dealing with people. 100 is a bunch. They will compete with other units, other police forces, other departments, and they may, in competition, give poor cooperation, but that's very seldom. 2 SWAT teams at the same location is a formula for trouble, because who's the hottest SWAT team? I win, you lose is an equation that they know very well. And there's a shame in being a loser, and being a loser is being a loser. It's an important thing you don't want to be in policing. They are macho. Okay, remember that guy from
Mhm.
yeah. Machismo is an exaggerated sense of masculinity, stressing such attributes as physical courage, virility, aggression, violence, and dominance of women. So machismo cops can be swaggering and badge heavy, as we call it. We don't want that. Police are real men. They're tough. They're strong. They project no weakness. We have some, as I say, bodybuilders who are really, really strong. Their muscles can't fit in the normal sleeves of their uniforms, and they got to have them specially let out. Weakness can be described in feminine terms: girly men, panty waist, pussy, wuss, sissy, etc. So you don't want to hear that about you in a cop world. It's projecting masculine capability, strength and ability to take it, courage, and playing while hurt is a high value among cops. But what about the women? There are women in the police world, more now in the Chico Police Department than I've ever seen. I've known a great many female police officers. They've been great. They've been personal friends, and they have a very special burden. You both, as women, will be actually have an advantage to be able to work within the world of the police woman, and as well as women in public who are affected by police stuff. And so it's an advantage when you've got obviously two genders in the world. Female police are like the daughters of the pioneers. They are breaking into a man's world that was been a man's world for a long, long, long time. It's like women in military, and they are still a minority, and they have to prove themselves, butch up, overachieve quite a lot. Friend of mine, police officer, she's retired now. She had to be, no more than 100 pounds soaking wet. She
Whoa.
was small, and yet she could project such force. I remember a training episode where she had a nightstick. They have a baton, and she showed how to take somebody down who was drunk and belligerent standing in front of her, and she put that nightstick kind of under her arm like this, with a little bit of it sticking out, and she'd order the guy to behave and do something or be good, and if he showed some sort of aggression toward her, any kind of motion where he was going to reach over to her or do something, she would immediately jab this thing in his solar plexus as hard as she could, doubling him up and grabbing his wrist, putting it over his shoulder and on with the cuffs, and get the other one in and cuff the guy up. Within 20 seconds, this guy is on the ground and
Wow.
unable to move. And he's just been doubled up because this thing in the solar plexus puts the wind out of you and sends a shock through the system. So she could do that. She could put a hurt on a guy. So I love to see her train. She was really impressive, actually. 100 pounds soaking wet or not. The women have to prove they can and will back up a male officer. One of the things that males will be concerned about is if you got to drag my prone body out of a situation and you don't have the power to drag my 210-pound frame back across the fence, and that is a real concern. The personality of female officers, however, can be a benefit to the police force. They have better verbal skills in general. They don't fit the stereotypes, so they can work in ways that are complementary to the males. They may marry and date in reverse stereotypes. In other words, somebody who is not macho, not cop, not oriented to that way. And that's interesting. and they may hit the glass ceiling. There are not many police officer females who make chief. One exception was Officer Gonzalez here with the Chico Police Department. I will say, blushing, that she was one of the cutest police officers I have ever seen in my life. She was
Oh,
absolutely beautiful and kind of petite and uh, certainly feminine. But she was all hardened up and butched up as they all kind of have to get, and talk tough and work within the system. And she worked her way up through the department here until she got to the level of, I think, lieutenant. And then she went to work for the Napa City Police Department. She is now the Napa City Police Chief.
wow.
And she's not one of these DEI appointments either. She's a real cop's cop, and I like her a lot. She's a great person, and she's still a friend. It is hard, though, to remain feminine in this very masculine world, and to project that kind of authority and force as a woman in a situation. So just understanding that's their challenge. Women cops will often marry cops because they will also understand what they do in their world. Narcissism. Nobody knows about narcissism, right? Not all cops are narcissistic. They may just have good, healthy self-esteem, but a narcissist psychologically has a big ego, thinks too highly of himself, is a legend in his own mind, but the fact is he has a very small sense of himself in the middle of that big blistered bubble, and he defends that place out there to the teeth because he knows or he feels that inside he's got nothing. So it is a very volatile mixture of psychological types. They can expect special treatment. Everybody is really a projection of their thoughts on the outside, and they have two kinds of people: those who support my image of myself, and those who challenge it and are to be excluded. So narcissism is a tough thing. Some cops can run narcissistic, but it's a bad mixture. It's a bad psychology. The grandiosity that comes with that can be difficult in those situations because it can tend to challenge people on the outside who want to mix it up with the cops. They will overestimate their abilities, inflate their accomplishments, be boastful and pretentious, devalue others, and they'll have a sense of entitlement. So we don't want narcissist cops out on the street because they're walking around with a psychological time bomb. It's not good. They have a thin skin. They can easily take offense. They can hold grudges, get even, want to get it over on somebody else, and be sensitive to criticism or their own failure. And of course, they are very subject to shame. Shame is the poison for all cop world. They will ruminate and obsess on long overdue recognition. They are so great, they ought to have reward for that. Nobody sees me, nobody understands how good I am. They can lack empathy. They are better than everybody else, so they don't have to feel anything for the people they're dealing with. They might go into a narcissistic rage. Narcissism comes from either overindulgence or abuse and neglect. So we're not having to do too much psychology here, but it is good to recognize if you see somebody narcissistic, it's a little dangerous. You may or may not want to be hanging out with a cop like that. I can't think of a cop we have right now who's in this situation mode, but it's just good to know about. Police are also idealistic. As we talked, I think, the first lesson about the altruism, they go into the policing world in order to make a positive difference in the world. I want a peaceful world. I want bad guys off the street. I want to have kids able to go to school without fear of somebody doing something bad to them.
Oh no.
So I'm going to make a positive difference. But the negative experiences rob the officer of their sense that their altruism is having a positive effect. Those who are held in pedestals will eventually fall off those pedestals because they're higher expectation than they really can live up to. So trauma will cause de-idolization. Their idyllic world starts to look less than. They can become critical, angry. They can feel foolish for having once believed in the ideals that they started with. So we have to be watching the cops. And then I once gave a presentation to the cops themselves about that unbuilding of the altruism and how they can become very ingrown, small group, distrustful, volatile psychology. And one of the officers in the room said, "Boy, it looks like you have a really bad expectation of us." I said, "No, not at all." And I said, "This is just something to warn you, because this is the effects that is being pushed on you through the virtue of your lifestyle and profession." And at that point, I was teetering on the edge of losing all my credibility when the oldest officer in the room held up his hand. He says, "The chaplain's right. I've lived through every single phase of what he's saying there, and it's all the truth. We gotta watch out for that." And what this officer had gone through basically was going through up that ladder from altruism down to that valley of the disillusionment, and then had built himself up in a new and more healthy and more realistic world where he was a part of it and understood his limitations and guarded against failing and worked his world very, very well. So I value that moment because he saved me from looking like an idiot. Okay. Cops can be helper rescuers. They can have that sense of being, well, Superman. They became an officer to help people, to put bad guys away, to protect society, as we said. They can have a soft heart for people who are in need and be very generous. Their marriage may be a rescue project. I had an officer friend who seemed to keep marrying these disasters, women who had really deep problems, but he was going to be the protector and the savior and the answer to her problems, but she kept messing up, and his life kept being in trouble because he wanted a rescue project and she wanted to be a mess. Being a rescuer can appeal to the narcissistic officer if they can have a successful rescue. If they don't, then shame. I like that picture. Shame is a bad thing. I think you'll all understand that. Shame is different than guilt. Shame is different than guilt. Guilt means that you have done something wrong and you recognize that, but you may be restored. You can confess it. You can say, "I messed up. I did the wrong thing here. I thought I was going to get by with it, but I have found I am in trouble now. Can I be forgiven? And what can I do to help fix the situation that I've caused?" That's what guilt is, and that's what the faith in our salvation means, that we can go from guilt to forgiveness to restoration to new life. But shame means a different thing. It doesn't mean you did something wrong. It means you are wrong. You didn't do something bad. You are bad. And there's no help for you. There's no restoration. You go into an endless spin cycle of misbehavior, shame, and self-degradation, hiding away from people, denying that you did something wrong, protection of yourself, and then recommitting. So shame can be a real bad place for cops to get to, and their police are shame prone because they live in an honor society. Dishonor is shameful. Shame may be used for discipline. Somebody can receive something that they'll take as shame. If they're under internal investigation, they are under shame, and they can be very much at risk at that time. An internal affairs investigation can cause huge shame. Being subject to criminal investigation, even more so. if it could have been a crime or alleged crime that they committed. You can imagine what happened to that officer Chauvin in Minneapolis, where George, oh dear, George Floyd death occurred. I don't know why it took more than a year to come back with a medical report that George Floyd died of his own drug overdose and not from the guy kneeling on his neck. Now, the kneeling on the neck was a bad visual, and we've all seen that. It looks very cruel, and it may have been very cruel, certainly out of context. But I've been told by police officers the neck kneel is actually a way of stopping somebody from getting up and fighting them, and it doesn't kill them, but it looks bad. And that started a whole series of riots across the country because it was racially seemed like a racially induced thing. Shame can cause a risk of suicides for cops. Suicide for bringing shame on the profession, for staining their badge. Suicide causes further shame on the profession if somebody goes to the suicide. Being in police world can cause a skewed view of the world. So can pastoring, by the way, but we'll talk about that. They spend 90% of their time with the worst 10% of the population. Think about that. They are not called to birthday parties. They are called to crime scenes and places where somebody has done something bad, maybe terrible. Everyone can become a dirtbag. Everybody lies. Everybody hides dirty secrets. There are no exceptions. I distrust the world can be the skewed worldview that they get into. Nothing surprises them anymore. They can get a bleak, dark, cynical view of the world. In the midst of that, they can be very protective of their families. Their family must be protected at all costs. Child care is the suspect. They can be overprotective of kids. They can have control issues. If the family gets victimized some way, sometime or another, a cop has a very hard time coping. Just try to be a young man who is dating the daughter of a cop. Oh my God. After the dad shows you his gun collection and he tells her how well he can shoot, he says, now you have a nice time with my daughter, and if you aren't home by 10 o'clock, I'm going to come looking for you. Okay. That can be a hard day. They are very emotionally defended. They must adopt emotional armor to survive the street. So they go out with a flat affect, which is an emotional flat screen. No apparent joy or judgment. They go out there very grim. This is a needed skill, but it's hard to take it off and be real. Some can't get defended and leave policing. Some can't handle this world. And it's been statistically shown that in about 7.5 years, half of those who went through academy and joined the police force have left policing altogether. They don't make their 30 or even 20 or 10. They get out. So 7.5 years is the break point for most officers. If they make it through that and get beyond it and are still in the police, they have a better chance of making it. And most or half of them leave the department, leave policing altogether by about 7.5 years. It can cause numbness of feelings and guardedness even at home, and be that flat affect, no emotion guy. Cop humor. You see the humor in that picture, I guess. The cops will use gallows humor, black or sick humor, as their emotional defense. You'll hear stories at the briefings in the morning that will make you go, what are these guys talking about? They are talking about these dirtbags or somebody bad. They will use dirty language, okay? We aren't offended by that. That's their world. They have to do this to blow off steam. It's actually a sign of health. When they laugh about something that you'd go, oh my God, that's terrible. They're laughing their heads off because they've got to laugh it, because if they don't laugh about it, it's going to get to them. Such humor is not understood by the public in general. And I suppose the portrayal of cop humor gets done in movies, and to the effect that people won't have sympathy for them, but they use it to reduce the horror of what they see in and out every day. One such humorous comment may be, and it's more to do with firefighters, that when they've discovered bodies in a burnt out building, they'll describe them as crispy or extra crispy. Okay? You might just say that you shouldn't say such things, but they're trying to shake off the horror because a skeletal figure that's been burnt completely off and nothing left but charred bones, you got to say something that will shake the horror of that, and they have to do that. They can also tease each other pretty hard, and I've been teased. I got through it. They tease each other hard. They joust. They rival each other. They make fun of each other. It's actually good-natured and a sign of affection, and they'll be testing you and making sure that you can take it. If you can take it just fine and give it as good as you got, without necessarily stooping to using blue language yourself, don't. But you show them that you're not harmed by it. It can also be mean-spirited and hostile, but that's more rare. There's a give and take with this. Don't let the pain show. They may tease the chaplains, as I say, but they're really pretty nice to us. They like us, believe it or not. Cops are action-oriented, and they are risk-taking. They go after it. They live in a world of risk that we would be too fearful to try to do. They're high-stimulus people. That can be a good or a bad trait. They have to live in an adrenaline-rich world. Biological, they live in an environment, or they're environmental, high stimulus, that is the world that they're living a high-speed chase car that's got a special engine built into it to go at high speeds and to handle corners. And they're called to go lights and sirens as fast as they can to certain events. And so they have been maybe brought up in a high stimulus or action-oriented world, or they have learned it in the trade. When they get off work, you'd think they'd go into painting pictures and doing something peaceful. No, they got quads, they got jet skis, and snowmobiles, and anything with engines and fast and dangerous. They love to do this, and they'll go out. And very often, a lot of the injuries that hurt their careers or put them on injured duty are done while they're in a hobby, when they're off duty. They always feel urged to do something. Action becomes imperative with them. They can be adrenaline junkies, getting bored easily when nothing is going on. That can cause them to try and stir up something if they're not self-disciplined. In a crisis, taking action is imperative, so it's good that they have this, but they've also got to learn how to de-escalate such situations and not create a big scene. They see risk as taking as courage, and so it is. Courageous. Bravery is a very high virtue. Cowardice is despised forever. If they see somebody acting in cowardice, they will judge them and wash them up. They may adopt a foolhardiness to prove themselves to be brave on the courageous side. On the anger side, an angry cop may seek a venue to act out their anger. It can be a subtle and unconscious element. They may cause a fight, you know, the Dirty Harry line, "Come on, punk, make my day." Cop groupies. Power, especially the power borne by an officer, is seen as sexy. These are real men. They're strong, decisive, commanding. They're available. They look interested in me. It can be a draw to girls who can be cop groupies. There's lots of opportunities for groupies, worship, extramarital affairs. They live in strange hours. They cannot come home sometimes with a great explanation that they had to pull an extra duty. The actual power and virtue may be lacking, and the others become disillusioned, but it can lead entirely to shame. When the relationship they're committed to goes sideways, it's his fault, and that can lead to trouble and to divorce and to a destabilization of an officer. They also are subject to peer pressure. Law enforcement is like a tribe or a fraternity, a legal gang. There's a great pressure to conform, to belong, to be accepted. I've often evaluated a police department in Chico very highly, I think, because there's not a type of officer there. There's lots of types. There's lots of various psychological backgrounds, cultures, backgrounds, a lot of different kinds of skills owned by different officers, so that we have a wide variety of personalities. And I think that's healthy because although they're all very different people, when the job has got to be done, they drag all their skills together, and it's very, very much a blend of skills and things that they all bring to the job. Loyalty to the tribe is expected. Loyalty can be a blind eye and a code of silence towards misbehavior. However, we have to make sure that they don't hide things that are really bad or harmful. Domestic violence can be law enforcement's dirty little secret. They can have a domestic violence or at least a dominant personality in the home. This stems from dominance and control that they have to carry with them on the job. There can be cycles of domestic abuse. The firearm laws are very strict. If an officer is charged with and caused to be guilty of a domestic abuse of a felonious level, he or she can never handle a gun again. The gun rights end in the state of California anyway. So they lose their job. So being accused of domestic violence can be a job-ending problem for a cop. The victim's fear can also be the victim's power. If you touch me like that again, I'll tell them that you abused me, and I'll lose you your job. The situation may call for the arrest of a fellow officer. That can be a bad dynamic. You're called in the same city you live for a domestic abuse or violence situation. That can be a very difficult thing to do. It violates the sense of the family of the cops. Trauma we've talked about. A critical incident that bothers an officer doesn't go away. It stays in them and it causes them trouble. It appears to be personally centered, not event centered, so they wear it around on themselves. Cops are going to have several traumas in their careers. The illusion of control gets broken in such situations. It has effects on spouses and kids, and the community expresses their opinions against us. The prosecutor may be evaluating the cop's actions. The cop may get sued. When returned to work, they may have similar calls and may avoid that scene where they had the trauma or similar calls. The indirect effects of trauma are irritation, withdrawal, acting out, alcohol abuse, loss of family relations. No one may understand a policeman who's going through trauma. PTSD can be the normal reaction of a normal person to an abnormal incident. I'm going to take a quick break here because I need to. So I'm going to go on pause. Back on this. And okay. All right, we're back up and running. Alcohol use and alcohol abuse can be a cop problem. It is, in the old kind of cop styling, it was definitely an abuse problem. I don't know that it is now. I haven't any way to gauge it or see where it's being gone over the line, but we shouldn't be foolish and think it doesn't exist. It's common. It's even condoned. I think I've told you that there was an old euphemism they would employ as going after work. They go to choir practice. All cops use that code for going out to the bar and with their fellow officers having a few drinks and laughing about the day and depressurizing. It was seen as a way to take the day off and get it off of them. The horrible things that they saw, the low-life people that they encountered, and to laugh it off was a way to kind of get away from it. And drinking was the lubricant that helped do that. But it's not healthy for the officer, and it's bad for home life, and it costs money that's unnecessarily done. But using alcohol in a big way is seen as macho. It can be caused by peer pressure to conform, to be initiated. If you're really a cop, if you're really one of us, you've got to come drinking. Problem drinkings are known by command by each other, and you should know where there is a problem. Chaplains will be brought in, perhaps. I've never been brought into an alcohol-related problem with cops, but I know that they exist. But enabling the officer to continue drinking is killing them with kindness, and it's not a good thing. Divorce. What may be a chaplain's role in divorce? Usually a divorce is something presented to us already a fait accompli. We don't get a chance to come in and do pre-divorce counseling or multiple marriage counseling. It's a problem. Multiple marriages are common in policing. Extramarital relationships can cause divorces. The wife may just up one day and say, I'm done with all this. I can't stand this lifestyle. I won't do it anymore. It may not be anybody's fault. It's just that she's not built for this. Being a cop's wife is a really different kind of world. He's got weird hours. He comes home so tired. He lays in bed. He'll watch violent movies, and then he'll drink himself to sleep or sleep on the wrong side of the clock because his shift is all night long. He works 3 or 4 days of the week, and the rest of the time all he wants to do is go out with his buddies and go four-wheeling. It can be tough on a young wife, especially with children. So if there's any way we can help kindly, quietly suggest better ways of life to them, it can be a lifesaver. Chaplain's role is to be easily accessible. We're just there. Life does not have to be like this. It can be our quiet message. We can help the officers to understand what is happening, to give them a new perspective. If we understand these psychological tendencies in them, we can be a resource to them on how to balance things out. We don't come in judgment of the police lifestyle. It's hard, and it's necessarily so. But they can be healthy, good people throughout it. They can live a whole career and go in a fairly early retirement that's well paid if they just keep in balance. Keep the things in balance, getting the job done, and considering other people are both as important as each other. An emphasis on law enforcement, the job in church, its people, the lower the rank, the less people skills are required, but more is better because they have one-on-one interaction with the public. Higher the rank, the more people skills are required because they're dealing both with officers who are beneath them in rank and also members of the public who have higher expectations of them. Our chief is a very articulate guy, and it's important that they can be that. I find that the personality type of the Chico Police Department chief is a very interesting one. In a different kind of a city, a huge city like Los Angeles or a small town, or that of a sheriff, is a different kind of psychology. Chico is a sort of a upper middle class city. It's centered around a university and also a very highly organized medical facility and farming. An interesting combination of things. The lifestyle of Chico is casual. People will go to business meetings in shorts and t-shirts sometimes. That kind of formality that you'd see in, say, San Francisco with a three-piece suit and a tie, necessary, or a woman in a woman's business suit, doesn't exist in Chico. Everything is pretty casual. And yet, if a police chief adopts a totally casual atmosphere, and everybody just call me Hal, let's just shake and let's just be casual together, he loses his authority. A police chief has to bear a great deal of power and authority, and all of his fellow officers have to respect him and give him a salute and consider he's the boss, he's the papa, he's the head of the family. We need to respect him and hold that respect. And at the same time, he's got to be warm and friendly and casual and be able to have you call him by the first name when that seems appropriate. It's a balancing act. And Chico's police department has had a series of guys who fall on one side or the other of that. Either they're too disciplinarian or too aloof, too much removed, or they're going through a crisis that alienates them from his fellow officers because they're in a wage dispute, or they can be just too friendly and everybody's supposed to give them a first name basis, and they lose all respect because they don't have that spine stiffening skill of being the authority and expecting it to be respected. So it's very interesting, something to be aware of. Now, we bring a humanizing and a divine presence to a very harsh profession. Our presence is 95% of what we bring. And the presence is not us, it's the Lord that comes with us. So that's the mystery and the mystique of being a chaplain, a minister in uniform. And it has more power than you know when we bear it correctly and with authority without being over the top. Much like I mentioned how the chief should be, we bear a great deal of healing power even when we don't say a thing. Okay, cop psychology number 1. What, if anything, are any of your questions or comments, things that struck you during that presentation? You may unmute yourselves.
I don't have a question, but it is a lot of material, a lot of
That's
stuff
all.
to go back and reread and maybe reread again.
I had 3 straight days of it. Yeah, so
Yeah.
full days. It was a lot we took in. It was great teaching in Michigan. I got it along the way. Yeah. So yeah, go over it, comb through it again, and get the sense of what you're got to deal with here.
Yeah.
They're great people. I really enjoy them. One of the things that changes when you're a police chaplain is that before you're a chaplain, you're driving down the street and the blue and red lights suddenly light up behind you and your heart goes in your throat and you pull over and you think, oh no, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? They're going to come and they're going to give me a ticket and it's terrible and it's awful and it's terrible. Now that I'm a police officer chaplain, I see the lights going off behind me and I pull over and I wave them as they go by, like, there's my boys, there's my guys, I'm proud of you. I don't get afraid, because even if they're going to stop and pull me over, they're going to say, oh, Chaplain, did you know how fast you were going there? No, I really had no idea. I was kind of in a hurry. I maybe made a mistake. But I don't feel like I'm going to get hurt. These are my guys. I'm proud of them. I love them, and they're real people to me. And they're people. They're not machines. It's not RoboCop, which is good. Anything you had to add that, Carla?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm the narcissistic cop, that would be hard to deal with. And I like the fact that you keep saying over and over that Chico police officers rock, that they're exceptional. I really, really like that a
They really
lot.
do. They really are. Now, I'll tell you, when I came aboard was 26 years ago, and it's a whole new generation of police officers now, and we have been adding to the force at a record rate the last 5 years, because the since the 2008 financial debacle that went on, we weren't hiring at the normal rate to replace, and the number of cops per thousand population dropped drastically over that time, and we were very unpopulated enough and didn't get the funding for quite a while. Now we have it, and with Proposition H here in Chico, which is an extra penny per purchase, a sales tax, which is going largely to law enforcement in our area. We've got enough money to be able to hire the cops we need, and now we have over 100 sworn officers in our Chico Police Department. Well, most of them are like under 25 years old.
Wow.
I have not met these people yet. They're all new. And I knew a whole other generation of guys who are all my heroes. I mean, I see them as super cops. They were fantastic people. And I gotta grow a whole new set of heroes in my mind because of the new guys who are out there. A few of the old guard are still with us. The chief was here all that time as an officer and working through the ranks. But when I see one of our cops on the street today, who is now in full retirement and enjoying their life outside of policing, if they haven't moved to Montana,
Mhm.
they almost always do.
Montana, huh?
Montana, Idaho, Tennessee, they move to places where they feel law enforcement officers are better received in California.
I see.
They and we're yeah. I tell you what, if a bad guy went to Montana and held up a liquor store, there would be 12 guns pointed at him from all over the store instantly, and he'd have no chance. So, because the cops are all up there, they're all living up there.
Wow.
They're all retired, and none of them gives up their guns. They're all armed and very safe, but not safe to a bad guy. It's amazing. Well, anyway.
What about their salary, though? I always hear that they don't really get, the salary they should have.
That's very true, considering the wear and tear on their bodies and time and their family and everything else. It's not unknown for a cop to make well over 100,000 a year, but that's not that much in this day and age, really, especially for that much of investment of life. And they, of course, they're doing more than 40 hours a week. Their typical schedule here in Chico is either the weekdays, which is Monday through Thursday, from like 7 to 4 or 5 p.m. Let's see, how does it go? 7 is the briefing. They're out on the road by 8 o'clock. They go 4 10s, so they go from 7 to 5. And then from 12 to 10 o'clock, there's a few more officers added. And then they have a swing shift that goes from 4 to 2 at night. And that's a pretty big group out there because there's crime stuff happens at night. And then they have a graveyard shift that comes on at like 10 o'clock or no, wait a second. Yeah, 10 o'clock and goes to 8 in the morning. So they have an overlap. That's the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday people. So they have 4 10s. So they're getting 4 day hours plus whatever overtime they pull because there's vacations and other out sick leave and other officers needing to be covered for. Then the weekend is 3 12.5 hour shifts. I can't recall. I think it's a 6 o'clock to 6:30 the next day, and likewise 6 o'clock to 6:30 around that way. So they get most of their hours in that 3 12.5s, and then they'll pull an extra shift at some other time. So it's crazy hours. They should get paid better. But a lot of the officers will build up quite an income by doing special overtime. They'll volunteer for extra overtime. It takes time away from their families, but when they're young, they can seem to do that pretty well, as long as they keep their family together and don't alienate their family from the lifestyle that they have. Anyway,
I feel really bad for the young ones. So how long do they usually normally consider them a rookie? What makes them change to the next level?
well, first when they get out of the academy, they go into the field training, which is quite arduous, and they'll have an officer riding with them all the time. Now, the officer who's being trained is the one driving, the one dealing with the public, the one doing all the cop work, but the experienced officer, the field training officer who with them will guide them through it, and more control to finally less control toward the end of that, and know that they know their way around the city, how to find their way on the map on the MDT, which is the mobile data terminal, which is that little laptop that's in the car. Well, let's talk about that a little more when we get into the second and final class, which is class 14, probably my favorite class.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to put you back on headphones because for some reason my volume is not working good.
I will, yeah, that's all right. You can use your headphones. Okay, class number 14 and final class of this series of classes, ride-along procedure and crime scene integrity. Okay, and that's us again. Now, ride-alongs. It's very important to do ride-alongs, and I don't know why the International Conference of Police Chaplains does not have this class as their part of their required 12 classes, their basic. Maybe some departments don't have ride-alongs. They certainly have different procedures, but we get to this side of the car and looking into an officer's face who is deciding whether to accept us in this right seat, and there we are. And you can see the MDT on the right side of that slide, which is just the big screen, which is part of there's a typewriter type thing down below, a typing element, and the cops are equipped to communicate with the station by telegraph, this wonderful system that brings, like through Wi-Fi or something, all this information into that screen. They can dial up voluntarily lots of different screens, like look up license plates and get an instant playback from the state of California as to what that driver is driving, where they come from, whether there's a crime involved with this, if it's a stolen vehicle. They can go into deep records on certain parties when they have stopped somebody, got their ID, and want to see what their records are. They don't have to do all this stuff by radio anymore because the direct computer terminal is just like the international superhighway. They are right on board with it. So it's very important to have that. You can also see at the left the two long guns that are being held. This is a California State University police officer. You can see on the badge. And we have four law enforcement units that overlap over the city of Chico. Chico Police have authority that extends to the city limits of Chico, and we are a municipal police department. That's what's generally called police if they have a municipality. The Butte County Sheriff's Department overlaps us because we're part of Butte County and we have a sheriff. They leave alone the policing for our district, but they are always they always come respond to a scene of death because they're the coroner. They're a deputized coroner, which is not a doctor in this case, but just somebody who handles deaths and the special things that pertain to death. We also have the University Police. The University Police have a special Chico State University Police Department, but it's part of a statewide University Police Department that handles all of our universities, our state universities. And then, of course, the University of California has its own set of police officers. That's statewide. Statewide officers, and then, of course, we have the California Highway Patrol that handles all the numbered highways around. They deal with the traffic problems on Highway 99 coming through town, Highway 32 coming through town, and their area of influence extends a little beyond those highways, but basically that's them. Beyond that, of course, we have the district attorney who has certain law enforcement powers throughout the county of Butte because they are there for court proceedings and investigations that pertain to that. But basically those four that I mentioned are our law enforcement, but they overlap. Now the Chico Police can have a chaplains organization, as we do. The Butte County Sheriff's Office has their own chaplaincy, an excellent program run by Ed Hall, a friend of mine. But the statewide CHP and University Police do not have chaplains. This is by edict from the state of California from several years back when not those organizations, but the CAL FIRE organization had a chaplain or some chaplains that were part of the force themselves. They were actually employees, and they would come to do fighter funerals or other events as chaplains, and they would do a Christian-based prayer or something that was too Christian for some people. And there was a complaint that went up in the state and said, if you're going to have Christian-based employees spreading, this First Amendment violating establishment of church and state kind of thing together, we're going to insist that you have all religions available to all people of various faiths and no faith. And the state of California said, well, that's untenable. We can't get something together that has Judaism and Hinduism and Buddhism and atheism and Shinto and God only knows what, other witchcraft. So we're not going to be in the business at all. They unplugged all the chaplains from all the statewide organizations, and they don't have chaplains now. So what happens is that we are here in Chico, and we have these statewide organizations, particularly the state police, state university police, and the highway patrol. And when they need help with chaplaincy, they call our department, our dispatch, and they say, could you send us a chaplain for a situation we had a very difficult something or other happen to us, and we could use a chaplain. Now, in mutual support of different agencies for one another, we can do that. We have to be deployed by our Chico Police and under the Chico Police authority, but then we can go in and act as chaplains to these other police forces. That's just something to know. Now, Now at the left of that scene, you can see there's a baton and also two long guns, a shotgun probably and a carbine. I think they've dispensed with the shotguns, at least in the cab now, and are going to only the carbines. I have to check that out. But there is a release on the console for those guns. Right now, in that position, they are locked, and there are electronic locks on those guns, and you cannot get them out. That's so a bad guy can't reach in and get your gun. But there's a release on the console, which we learn what it is, so that as chaplains we can remove that gun and use it if we, God forbid, ever get in that situation. All right, riding along with an officer is both a privilege and a tremendous opportunity. Your ministry in chaplaincy really begins here. When we get called out for special call-outs, like somebody's dead or somebody's got to be notified of a death in the family, we're dealing with the public. We're not dealing with the officers. And our primary job is to deal with officers in ways that are benign, quiet, kind of under the radar, but we're loving them and helping them. That's what we do in ride-alongs. We're getting to know them so that if they have a problem, they will call you. If you participate with them in their world, they'll come to know you, and then they can call on you when they have a need later on. If they don't know you, promise you, they'll never call you. They don't want to see a stranger. They want to know a friend. If you wait only for special call-outs, you may serve in a limited manner for the public, but for the deeper walk with the police themselves, you're going to wait forever. No one calls you if they don't already know you, and the police ride-alongs are how you do that. What we recommend and ask for our chaplains is to ride a full shift during a particular month. That doesn't mean all one shift. It can be 2 half shifts or whatever. I tend to like to go out on like a Thursday morning and go in for the briefing at 7 and ride until noon. That's half a shift, and I am able to do that once or twice a month and fulfill my obligation to getting to know the officers. And you get to know them pretty well in a short period of time, riding in the right seat and being there for them. Note, we ride with our own department for training. That doesn't have to be said here. You'll need to obtain clearance to do it. For your future chaplaincy, you'll need to be fingerprinted at our own department, have a background check run. That's subsequent to your being approved by the chief. Okay. Now that was most of our first chaplaincy. This is 26 years ago, that shot. Of those 9 chaplains that you see there, well, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There were 10 of us to begin with, so a couple are missing. Of those, I'm the only one left. All the other ones have gone on to do something else or retired from it or left the area. Jack Sullivan over my right shoulder there is, I believe, dead now. Jerry, who's kneeling down, may be dead. I think so, probably. Carolyn, who's right next to me, is still alive, but she's quite aged now. She's pushing into her 90s and is fully retired. Dale Rash next to her came out of police chaplaincy because he had physical diseases that he needed to attend to. He and I were very close friends and still are. The other guys have retired out of it, but that was our early chaplaincy here in Chico, and most of those are in the uniform called B uniform, the gray shirt, uniform shirt with the insignias on it, and we now have real badges instead of stitched badges, but black pants, black shoes, and the gray shirt. So that's a uniform. All right. For the Chico Police Chaplaincy, we wear black pants. It doesn't have to be slacks. It can be slacks. It can be cargo pants. We like cargo pants a lot. Black jeans, just black. Black shoes that you can run in. So nice patent leather pumps are not good. You need to have some black shoes, like athletic shoes, that you can you can run in or step around in or something like that. Black socks that go with that, and a black or white, but we prefer black t-shirt, one under. There are some really good light gauged black t-shirts available at Costco. I think 3 a pack. They're very lightweight polyester, but it works great. And in hot weather, they don't wear you down and they don't stick to you too much. They're pretty good. The chaplaincy shirt, the Class C shirt, Class B shirt that I mentioned there is a uniform shirt. We wear a long shirt, long sleeve and short sleeve. You will obtain one of each for depending on the weather. You'll have your name stitched on there at the badge, place for badge, and the shoulder patches on there that identify you as a chaplain. The body armor is something we will supply for you with the Kevlar inserts into the carrier, coordinating with the chaplaincy shirt that goes up and over the chaplaincy shirt and matches it. We do offer you hats if you want to buy one. It's optional, but it's sort of a ball cap or possibly even a ski cap. You should be carrying, of course, a cell phone with you at all times so you can be found. Also, so you can operate that special program, that app that opens doors. You can't open the door, you can't get into the department. Chaplaincy jackets, we have both light and heavy weight jackets to equip you in. They're black. They go with a sort of black and gray motif that we have. And the badge on belt carrier and an ID is also a good look. The badge, we issue you a badge that has a kind of a, the needle thing that pierces through those holes and then is tied up. If you're not wearing a uniform shirt with a badge carrier, but a casual shirt we also have what we call our Class C shirt, our casual, you can wear a badge patch on your belt. The belt thing has a little loop in there to run your belt through, and it's leather, and it has a cutout of the shape of the badge, and then you just stick that in there, and the badge is worn on the belt. So you'll see cops do that a lot. There may be these things worn with you. It is at your option. I don't take a lot of stuff with me anymore. I don't find them useful. But we do issue a pocket ID that can go in your wallet, so you have that. You can take a small Bible or prayer book if you wish. You probably find that what you have on your cell phone is going to be sufficient. I don't know that a small notepad is needed anymore. We do issue you business cards from the department, which you can leave with them. It leaves only one phone number, which is the departmental phone number, but you can write your own phone number on it if you want to leave it for somebody in the field. You might want to carry waterless hand cleaner if you have concern for that. A small first aid kit. We have not had incidents where we need to use those, but we'd like to train up some people in some first aid. Latex rubber gloves can be possible. You'll get into situations where you do want to glove up. I use a pair of leather pat-down gloves. I say UTM there, but that's now from downrange. They're available there. You just pick them up and buy your own. I like the pat-down gloves because they're easy to wear in your back pocket, and then take them out and put them on, and then you're gloved up to touch somebody or to touch something. There are protective masks for CPR. I'm not talking about those cloth masks that were used during COVID, but there's a sort of a rubbery mask that you can put on to somebody's face if you want to do assisted breathing. It may be good to have a strong flashlight, stronger than your cell phone. And they have some pretty strong lights that are pretty small anymore. We used to have to wear those great big multi-D cell battery flashlights that were like a club in and of themselves. I kind of felt good at having that big a thing with me, but it's overkill today. A small handheld high potential torch is a good thing. Might even want some breath mints. You might want to take some money for coffee for you and your officer, that they will always say, no, I'm going to pay. And once you've offered and they want to pay, let them. You offer it anyway. When in training, you will need no uniform, but wear shoes that you can walk in or run in through rough terrain. Wear long pants, a comfortable shirt. You'll probably not get out of the car during stops or interviews. That's if we have you go on the road before your uniform. And at this present time, it may still be, because it happened during COVID, that they don't allow any citizen riders in the cars, period. In which case, we just get you into the chaplaincy and then we'll get you on the ride-alongs. That's probably the status right now. Bring your trainee AD. Well, you're not going to have that. So now ride-along procedures. And if anybody wants to stop and ask a question, jump in and do that, because I want to make sure you get all of this. Initially, initiating a ride-along, not in training. This, let's say, as you're a chaplain. You want to inform the on-call supervisor that you're respectfully desiring a right seat in the car for a ride-along. The chief has recently communicated this to us, their repeated requests that we make prior, like the day before, contact with the on-call supervisor, that is a sergeant, who's over the particular shift you want to ride with. Ask the sergeant, can I get a ride along tomorrow? I'll be in around 7 in the morning, or whatever it is that you want to go, whatever shift it is you're taking. And he or she will say, well, sure, that's great, chaplain. Or, tomorrow we're going to have a training session. It's not going to work really well. Can we go another week? And then he'll arrange it with you. Do this through your liaison or by direct telephone call to the supervisor on the phone system, voicemail. I can get you a phone number of Christina with the police department administration office. She's got everybody's phone numbers and knows when they are on supervisor position. And so she can direct you to the person and their phone number, and you can take it from there. You'll leave your own phone number so that he or she can contact you. It's most likely you'll get a message line, but they are responsive. So you'll get authorization ahead of time to take a specially scheduled ride. Okay. As a chaplain, pre-arrangement is best. I have always just shown up, but I'm pushy like that. I'm looking like I'm going to have to get to pre-arranging because they've asked for that. You may make special arrangements with a special particular officer at your request or his or hers. Like I mentioned, I had that officer coming off the officer-involved shooting, and I wanted to be with Eric the day he went back on board, which was good because he had those interactions with the public, asking him about shooting people. I was glad to be there to defuse him. I really like that guy. Come in uniform with a proper ID and all the things mentioned above. Promptness is vital. Don't expect to get a ride if you're an hour late. So you come in there. They will go out in the field sometime between 7:30 and 8 o'clock in the morning. They'll be there for about a half an hour or more in briefing. The briefing means they sit around the tables with the supervisor in the middle, telling everybody what's happened in the last 24 hours, resolving questions that may have hung out there, asking questions of how this or that interaction went yesterday in the field. They'll basically be just going over the past recent period of time. They may talk about training issues, something that's been occurred in the nation, show a video, but very often it's just low-level talk about what's on the blotter, and they'll talk about that and get it over, and you won't understand half of it sometimes because they talk speedily and in their own language, but that's okay. You just hang with them. And when they say, Chaplain, what's up with you? You'll say, I'm just looking for a right seat in some of your officers' vehicle. They say, okay, well, Chaplain, you ride with Officer Jones, and then you'll go to that officer when the briefing is over and say, Officer Jones, so I'm Chaplain Mary Ann, just call me Mary Ann, or I'm Chaplain number 10, and just call me Mary Ann if you want, or whatever you want to do, Chaplain Jones. So, or Chaplain Smith, I used Jones already. You get their badge number from them. Find out the badge number from the officer, so that then you go to the dispatch before you get into the car. You go around to dispatch. I'll show you how to do all this. And you go into dispatch, talk to the dispatcher who's in charge of policing that day. There's generally a lead dispatch for fire and for policing. They're both sitting in the same room, but the fire department handles fire department calls, and the policing handles the police calls with auxiliary support. So you go in and say, I'm Chaplain 10, I'm going to be riding with 24, and they say, okay, I got that down. So then they are tracking you. You're going to be in that car with that officer. They can call that officer and get a hold of you at any time, and they know that you're in those situations, and the supervisor will know that you're there. So you told the dispatcher you're going to go on the ride. Then you go to the officer and find out what car they're going to be riding in, and get in the car and wait for them. You're quiet when radio information is being given, because when the radio is on, everybody's listening to the radio and doesn't want you talking over it. So just be aware of that. Know where you are at all times, the street names, the major landmarks. Make sure you get a sense of your ability. What if your officer gets taken out and you have to call an emergency call? I'm somewhere in the downtown region. I don't know where I am right now. That's pretty helpless. Now I'm at the corner of Lotus and 6th Street, and we're in the northeast corner of the intersection or whatever. Listen to the scanner to know what's happening around you. The police radio does tell you things that are happening. You're not going to be able to tell that much what's on the MDT, the computer, because you're not going to have it pointed towards you. But there have been times when I've been helpful. Sometimes steering the car while the police officer is typing something in there. That's a little exciting. Learn how to use the equipment inside the police unit. We will issue you a radio to take with you so that you can be contacted directly from the police department and contact the police department if there's a radio need. That can happen. There's a release for the gun, the long gun that's in the police unit. I'll show you where that is. What the sirens do and the spotlights, you're not necessarily going to operate those, but you know where those are. They're sitting in a place in the middle of the car. Now, as I say, they carried long guns. Once upon a time, they had a shotgun and a carbine. Now they probably only have the carbine, I think. I'm not sure. I've been told it's only one. You can see in the middle of that long stock, those two matching bars that go across there. Those are the locks, and they can't be opened unless there's an electronic lock that opens them up and lets you take the gun out for like 10 seconds, and then it locks up again. So there will be a thing on the console between the two seats that looks sort of like this, but there's going to be a button that's not shown here. There's a reason for that. Let's say the one that's down at the bottom next to the one that's lit up, and it'll say alarm. If it says alarm, that's the gun release. Why would a bad guy press a button that says alarm, right? So that's the gun release. Okay, now you know something. Don't tell anybody. Okay. Be prepared to help the police officer in any situation. Cover your officer and keep a 360-degree watch while he or she is doing his or her job. You're looking for things you can report. I've been able to spot the bad guy getting away if the officer is around the right side of the building and I'm kind of looking around the left and I can see it, I can say, there's the guy's over here, or I can keep my eyes out of the car as we're driving along looking for somebody in a black hoodie and white shorts, red shoes. Well, there he is. White male adult. Looks like there he is. So I can help the officer find people he's looking for. After each ride or special call out, note your hours within your own records. Now, we're not keeping records on what happened in the field, but if you were called out for a death notification, you mark it down in your records somewhere so you keep your time. Or if you're on a ride along, same thing. You might say, I was with Officer 64. That's enough. But we are going to turn in our hours quarterly, including the time that you've spent in these trainings, by the way. So make a note of this training. And I can give you an empty matrix to fill in your hours. It's not like you get paid for this, but the police department does get a record together of all the hours spent, voluntary time, from chaplains. And it's good for them to have that. So we want to keep good time hours for them. It also pertains to meetings we have. It pertains to special training, to field calls into the field, and as I said, training. So you will write down in your notations death notice or ride along or whatever. So when you're in a ride along, be alert. Most officer-involved shootings take place in 3 to 5 seconds. So it's something we have to keep our attention on. Now, while we're out there, it's attractive, but don't be a cop. Your officer does not need another cop in the car. He or she needs a chaplain. Don't be religious, be a chaplain. A chaplain is a sort of a multi-purpose person. Don't initiate religious conversations. If the officer does so, that's great. Take it as far as he or she wants to go. And be sensitive to that. We're not there to push our religious views, but we're there to share them if they ask about them. Happy to do that. Now, if you can't improve on silence, it's okay to ride along in silence. Don't fill the air with chatter just because you're nervous. But it's okay to speak. Don't breach the confidentiality of your conversations with the officer. We've already gone through that. Follow the officer's instructions to the letter. If he wants you to stand here, stand there and don't move. Assist the officer in any appropriate manner. If there's a domestic dispute, they may ask you to stand here with this person and keep them away from the other person by command. Take a suspect into custody, etc. They're going to do that, but you may help open a door or something like that. Enter into searches only if you're quite sure what you're doing. I've helped unpack some packs that had syringes in them. That's dangerous. Be real careful what you're doing. If you're searching through stuff, you might end up getting stuck with a dirty needle. We don't want to have you do that. Okay. Do not disturb or contaminate a crime scene. If it's a crime scene, be exactly where you were told to be. It's better to be a live witness than a dead hero. So we are there to be eyes and ears, not necessarily hands-on. Do not assist with the cleanup or removal of any hazardous or biohazardous materials. So if it's bloody, don't touch it, for instance. No chaplain is to be involved with the cleaning up of blood or other residual body fluids. That's not your job. If the officer doesn't seem to want you with him or her, just be cordial, helpful as you can be, and end the ride along when it seems to be appropriate. I guess it's about time for me to go. 10:19 means take me back to the station. I think that's probably the ride for today. If he or she behaves in a reckless manner, we've talked about that. Ask the officer to return you to the station immediately, for both of you are at risk. This request alone will probably get their attention. If the officer commits a criminal act, you contact a senior chaplain myself or Bud, or the liaison as soon as possible. Ask for instructions, give general information, and then if asked, you give more specific. If neither the chief nor the chaplains are available, then you ask for a watch commander, like a lieutenant level person. If the officer should ask you to get the shotgun, be prepared to use it. And of course, if you do, look to this chaplain liaison immediately after the incident, make a report. Our liaison is our chief of police, Billy Aldridge. So at the end of the ride, you've had an exciting 5 hours or 10 hours with them. We have chaplains who will go on an all-night ride-along, and that's pretty brave. That's pretty wonderful. I don't think I've done an entire night, though. I've done an entire night at a scene of death. But you thank the officer for the ride. You appreciate that, and they say, hey, anytime. Believe that. Go back to the dispatch then to inform that you're no longer on the ride with badge so-and-so. And they'll say, okay, great. They take you off the schedule, and you're no longer showing up as a blip on the screen. It's a false signal. Okay. Crime scene integrity. We're out in the field, we're doing ride-alongs, we're going to things we don't necessarily expect because they just develop as we're in the scene. The possible types of crime scenes, they involve a murder. I have been to a murder site, though not inside at all. I have been to several suicides. And death by unknown means, the 10 code on that is called 1144. If the dispatch calls you and says you got 1144, that's death by a means not yet known. In other words, their brains are not all over the floor. They're just dead in bed or on the floor somewhere or around the back of the house. We don't know how they died. Kidnapping can be a possible terrible kind of thing. A sexual assault, we've had those occur, and chaplains involved with the aftermath of a rape or rape attempt. Domestic disputes, several have happened in our experience. Traffic accidents happen, and the police officer may be called to provide some cleanup, maybe doing measurement of skid marks and things like that, and we may be called upon to go out and do traffic control, diverting traffic away from or having them move over into other lanes so that we can continue to do our job. Might be a drug bust. I've been on one of those, moving along in with the BINTIF multi-agency drug force, the NARCs. It might be a home or commercial robbery. That I've had several incidents like that, where there's been a robbery or a burglary, certainly of that. Accidental deaths, a lot of those. Vehicular burglary or break-in, that can happen. Certainly, there are some wonderful means by which our cop cars are able to take license plate numbers robotically. They just scan all the licenses, immediately throw that back into the state logs, and come back with stolen vehicle notification. Got this stolen vehicle, such and such a vehicle. Go back and find that vehicle and call it in. Then we want to find out who's driving this stolen vehicle. Vandalism and graffiti, of course, are happening kind of all the time, here and there. We don't like it. It happens. Now, at a crime scene, there's a perimeter. There's an outer perimeter and an inner perimeter, perhaps. The outer perimeter keeps the general public out. The inner perimeter protects the direct area of the crime, while official actions can be going on between the two outer or inner perimeters. There may not be two such perimeters, but the area surrounding an area where the crime has been committed is the perimeter. The inner perimeter would be the immediate area around the crime scene. The outer would be a larger area in which the police can work and not have interference by the public. Perimeters are normally established with marked yellow crime scene tape. which you've seen a lot of. In the case of a shooting, you can expect the outer perimeter to be quite large, since spent ammunition can be accounted for and found in that kind of area. So they want to know what's going on. Okay. Evidence is anything at the scene of a crime that can be used to solve the crime or lead to the conviction of the perpetrator of the crime. It may be dust, hair, threads, footprints, fingerprints, papers, and their arrangement, or anything. It is, of course, verbal accounts of the incident by witnesses or alleged witnesses at the time. The chain of evidence is a trail that carries a piece of evidence from the scene of the crime to the courtroom and trial. It is a very controlled sequence. You may remember, both of you could remember back in the O.J. Simpson trial, where that glove was carried by the police officer from the crime scene and handled improperly. It screwed up the whole trial. It made it possible for O.J. to go free because they had improper handling of evidence. It's got to be handled right. At the crime scene, it's bagged, it's notified, it's noted, it's identified, it's brought into the police station. They will check it into the evidence locker. When we go walk through the police department with you, we'll show you where the evidence locker is. There's basically a wall of lockers, and they have different sized doors depending on the size of the evidence. What's interesting about these lockers is when you push them closed, they'll clasp locked, but there's no handle and no combination or place to lock them from the outside. They are locked and you can't get them back out, because through that wall goes into the evidence chain, and the evidence officers are there to take that evidence to make sure that it's stored properly, and they can swear that it didn't go anywhere from there. Nobody tampered with it after the officer turned it in. It's sacrosanct. It's kept for trial. And if somebody from the DA's office or the defense wants to see that, it's checked out carefully and checked back in carefully, so that the train of evidence never gets broken and it can't be altered or messed with. If you pick something up, you must be part of that chain of evidence. If that is evidence, don't touch or pick up anything at the crime scene unless directed by an officer. I was once involved in a search that went over a huge field, several acres large, looking for any evidence of a shooter who had been on that property and had shot and killed somebody. They were looking for anything they could find that was unusual. And the VIPs, our Volunteer and Police Service, which is a pretty wonderful big organization, were scanning, and they used the services of this lowly chaplain to also look on the property for anything that was going to be helpful in evidence. Then we call for evidence collectors to come. At a crime scene, there will be an incident commander, depending on the size of the crime scene. That person is in charge of the action at the scene. This may be a responding officer, the sergeant who arrives later, or the person of higher rank that assumes responsibility for the scene. Very often it's a lieutenant if it's a particularly important crime scene. It can also be the crime scene investigator or crime scene technician while they're investigating the scene, but there's somebody who's involved with this commanding at the scene and tells the story of where you can go, what you can do. Crime scene search, there is a group of highly trained technicians who gather evidence. CSI, you've seen, there's TV shows called that. Crime scene investigators. We have specially licensed and trained crime scene investigators in the Chico PD. They're just officers who are on patrol, but they will be spread out among the schedule, so there always is a CSI officer on deploy for general going around the city. And if there's a crime that's committed, they'll be called over to take the crime scene investigation. They'll catalog it, they'll file it for others to receive at trial, present at the trial. The Cases are won and lost based on the efficiency, completeness, and the integrity of the crime scene technician. The media, person or persons who are part of the working press is the media. They may be from the newspaper, the radio or television stations, from publications in the area. They may be just somebody with a cell phone camera, but they have their agenda, which is gathering information and facts for publications. May be friendly, may not be friendly towards policing. But we may be friendly but not informative. If they say, "Oh, are you a chaplain with the Chico Police?" You go, "Yes, sir." What's your name? So and so. What do you think happened here? I have no comment. No, that's not fair. I'm sorry, I'm a police chaplain. I cannot have a comment, period. I don't have to explain that. The scene supervisor or the department's media representative, we have one, Kelly DeLong, is our departmental media rep. She's wonderful. She knows how to talk to the media and to give a statement. It's not our job, period. Don't even tell them what you're doing there. You can give confidentiality as the reason for your silence. I am held in confidence. I can't tell anybody, but that's how we're explaining. I'm sorry, I'm not able to talk about this. Talk to the media spokesperson. Remember the slogan from World War II, loose lips sink ships. In our case, loose lips could sink the whole ministry of the chaplaincy, so we don't talk about it. Okay, the chaplain comes to a scene. We can help or we can hinder the process of the crime scene by our actions. If we disturb the evidence, pollute the scene, make the CSI's work harder, we can be the cause of a criminal getting off when the prosecution might have properly occurred. This could cause the department to look critically at the work of the chaplains. As I said, the O.J. Simpson was not convicted because they improperly handled evidence. You will arrive at this crime scene in one of two ways. Either you're on a ride with an officer and you get sent to the location where the crime may have occurred. You may pollute the scene before you know that a crime has happened. Extra footprints, fingerprints, handprints can make the work of the CSI much more difficult, if not impossible. So be careful. If in doubt, stay clear of the area. Wait for the officer to invite you into an area. When I responded to that inskip shooting of the two Butte County Sheriff's officers, I started to walk toward the cabin where they were investigating, and I was called off by one of our SWAT team and said, "No, chaplain, don't go over there. That's still inside the compass of where they're investigating. There may be footprints that they're needing to track there, so don't walk over there." And I realized, oh my goodness, I could mess up the crime scene if there's tracks that they have to see. So I learned a little bit that night. When the yellow tape is put up, respect it. You may be called inside of it, but you wait for them to call you. You're called to the scene either by communications, a supervisor, another chaplain. You'll be approaching a scene where a crime has been committed. Let's say an officer-involved shooting. One of our chaplains will be at the hotel where they're sequestered, but you may be called down to deal with members of the public at the crime scene itself who have been objectively affected by this crime. They were witnesses. They're in deep shock. They need some help. They need triage. So don't cross the inner or outer perimeters without permission. Most of our work will take place outside the yellow tape. When called upon, you can go inside either perimeter, remembering you're on holy ground and you go where you're told. Spent ammunition, matchbooks, buttons, threads, blood drops can be important to be where they are. If they're moved, they may be useless, so be sure of yourself when you go inside a crime scene. I'm saying it over and over again, but that's the story here. When called to the scene, you're not an emergency responder. You don't have to drive code 3. Code 3 means fast to get there. Chaplains drive their own vehicles and provide their own insurance. An accident could be very costly, and so it could damage the chaplain program as well as a car, a body, or a life. So chaplains don't use red and blue lights on their personal vehicles. They don't run the red lights. They're not in a hurry. We're coming a long time after the crime's been committed. If you have any reason to believe you're going to come into contact with blood at the crime scene, carry latex gloves in your pocket, or sometimes just say, I'm just not going to go in there. There's blood in that scene. It's too late after a contact to find out that the blood was infected with HIV or some other contaminant. So remember that our chaplain mission is a spiritual one. We're not auxiliary police officers or crime scene investigators. We're not even VIPs. So we're there to assist as a chaplain. It may be a multifarious kind of assistance, but it isn't as cops. Now, I've been mentioning codes, and as codes is used in California, most often there's 10 codes, which I mentioned. There are only a couple of them that are in common use, so don't worry about it. We've heard from old CD, civil radio kind of usage, 10-4, like 10-4, good buddy. That's still a code that's used sometimes. You can say 10-4 anytime. We might say 10-4 between each other. The message is received, I hear you. That's just good affirmative stuff. But it's pretty informal. 10-8 is something you will hear. 10-8 means I'm in service and I'm available for an assignment. I'm done with the current assignment and I'm now 10-8. So you'll hear the officers use that. So that's something to know. In service, available for assignment. I'm 10-8 means I'm ready for a new assignment. 10-19 means I'm returning to the station, okay, from where I was. I'm 10-19. You can also say, I'm returning to the station. Plain language is coming back into vogue so that you don't have to know all these codes. And the last of the codes that are used fairly frequently is 1144. I've mentioned that. Somebody's dead. The cause of death has not officially been declared. We've got suspicions, but we have a dead body here. And so the protocols for the dead body are something we've talked about in other classes. Okay, there's also the code acknowledgments. Code 1 and Code 2 are not talked about. Code 3, though, is an emergency. It means respond with lights and sirens and fast as you can go safely. Code 3 was the name of a coffee shop that was connected to downrange weaponry store, but then they sold it off to Dutch Brothers, so now it's just Dutch Brothers. But Code 3, coffee, was a pretty good idea. I thought that was funny. Code 4, however, is no further assistance is needed. Back to normal. Everything's okay. Slow down. Everything's fine. Turn your lights off. Turn your sirens off. Code 4 is fine. So Code 3 is emergency. Code 4 is get there. These others are not in use so much as I can say. I've been in there. Okay. Whirlwind this morning. It's a good thing we only had 2 classes today because they ran a little longer and they're action-packed, and I think they're important. Do you all have a question?
No, you're quite amazing, instructor.
Oh, thanks. Well, I've been in this for 26 years, so I feel a lot about it. It's an important, good program. We're very proud of what we do here, and I think we'll be proud of you if you're involved with it. Something you might just put in the mix, Carla, because you weren't aware that the chaplain's office is also the VIPS program, which is you wanted to help and serve. If chaplaincy isn't a fit for you, you might think about VIPS. They are the volunteer and police service. The hours worked are whatever they can supply, but they do all kinds of things for the police department. They have their own uniforms, they have their own badges, they have a white shirt, and it is something, they have a whole camaraderie and a lot of people, both women and men, who serve this. Some of them will work almost full-time hours just volunteering for the police, and they are much loved. So just, if you weren't aware of them, that's also something that we have available to us. So something to know. But we'll wait to see you heal up and get you more physically capable. In the meantime, if you can supply that information in the application that I sent you, and with your decision to go forward on this, schedule a time with the police chief who can interview you and give his approval as to your trying for the chaplaincy. You see in this picture here our Class A uniform. I've lovingly called this the cheap suit because it's a fairly inexpensive polyester suit, but it's a nice uniform suit. That's LAPD blue. There are two standards in the country for navy blue for police officers. One is Los Angeles Police Department blue, and the other is New York Police Department blue. And I think they're just slightly different. I wouldn't know the difference between them, but West Coast tends to go LAPD blue, and it's more or less the same color. I think different dye lots can be somewhat different, but this is just it's like a normal suit jacket that's buttoned up with gold buttons down the middle. Has a place for hanging the badge, and you stick your name tag through the opposite breast. Has those insignias on the shoulders like that. Today they're not the yellow and colored ones. They're more muted gray and black, and that's the way they'll be fitted out. And then it has a matching pair of pants that goes with that. You supply your own white dress shirt. We will supply you with a tie, whether you want the tied tie like the one that's on me there, or women also have the option of having there's a little blue fan thing that just sits up under the collar. It kind of sits up in there. Maybe you've seen that before, but it looks very official. But the women wear pants in this case. Women wearing pants is no surprise anymore, unless you're Amish or something. Or yeah. So this will be one of the things that we will purchase and prepare for you, and that's for instances like saying the opening prayer to the city council meeting, going to the annual meeting of the police department, going to badgings and award ceremonies for the police department, any official sort of upper end formal kind of setting will wear the Class A uniform like I'm having on there. If we're out in the field or responding to a call out or on a ride along, we'll wear the B or gray shirt with a ballistic vest. And there's also a Class C, which is just informal pants and this stitched up golf shirt that I call the rubber shirt because it's kind of stretchy, and it's official, and it tells everybody who you are, that you're with the Chico PD chaplaincy, and it doesn't have authority with it and has no place for a badge, but it would be for, like, if we're going out to prepare tri-tips for the officers and it's not formal, it's for Halloween or whatever, and we're preparing them for going on a long patrol, but it's informal. So we'll let you know when each level of formality is due. And again, if you have any more questions, you graduate my little course. Well done. Thank you for your attention. Read over the notes and get to know better what we did there. And I'm going to stop the share. And that's it. Been a blessing. May I say a prayer and let us out of here? All right. Lord God, Heavenly King, bless you for all your provision for us now and always. We thank you for our new president who is taking on the role of his office seriously with a sense of divine purpose to help our nation through the 4 years yet to come to a better way. I pray that he will be given divine guidance and help in doing so, and protection. Please protect his life, which has been under threat. We pray also for the police department, the Chico, and for all police officers everywhere, from our border patrol to our statewide agencies to our municipalities and sheriffs who oversee such a lot of life and are challenged and greatly burdened by things happening in our society. May they be relieved, and may they have long life and healthy lives and not be harmed by their occupation, which they've taken seriously and which they bear with such honor. I pray, O Lord God, that you will bless and guide us as chaplains and potential chaplains to the police, that in giving our lives and time to these wonderful men and women who do such fantastic things for us, we'll be enriched and will bring the message from our community with us. It says, we see you, we approve of you, we love you, we are supporting you, we've got your back, and we are for you. What can we do for you? How can we make your lives better? Because you're underserved by the nature of your jobs, alienating and isolating yourself from the rest of society necessarily, and getting a skewed view of what the whole population is about, because you have to see the worst of it. May we bring some of the best of it with us and exemplify the way the rest of the city sees them, and help heal their hearts as they adopt and adapt to the life of police officers. All this we do pray in the name of your Son, our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen. Okay. Well, bless you both. We'll be in contact. Marianne will figure out a time for getting you dressed up at the 30th for you. And Carla, you'll just keep me in touch with your healing up and getting your hands back, because you're going to need those. You're on mute.
Is it possible to go to the 30th?
It is possible. Now, it is at 11 o'clock at the police department. If you come, you've got my cell phone number. You can let me know that you're there, and I'll come out and let you in.
Okay.
I'll lead you back. It's all the way back into the detectives department. It's a different building, but I'll get you there. Yeah, do come and introduce yourself to the rest of the chaplains and see what we do and who we are.
All right. And how long do you think it'll last?
It's about an hour and a half.
Great. Okay. Sounds good to me.
Okay. Well, the 30th, be in contact with me that morning, and I'll ascertain that you're coming, and we'll get in there and see it.
Great. And I'll get you that application this week.
That'll be perfect. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you very much. Both of you have a blessed day.
You do too. God bless you both.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.